So welcome everybody. So it is lovely to see a few, lots of familiar faces or names in the chat, in the attendee panel. So welcome. And if you're joining us for the first time, it's lovely to have you here too. And as you know, those of you who've been with us before for these webinars, you'll know that you are on listen only mode. So if you do want to send us messages through the webinar or questions or thoughts or comments, please do use the chat panel. It's always good to just hear some of those and see some of those and have that connection with you all. And here comes Sandra. So Sandra, you can just, we are being recorded, Sandra. So it's a bit like Davina McCall, you're live on Channel 4. So it sounds like it's all good now.
Yes.
Excellent. So sit back, Sandra. I'm just in the introductions bit, so glad you're here. So just to say, so it is being recorded, and as you heard me say, we will put the recording up onto our YouTube channel, so you can have that as a resource after the webinar's finished. So welcome if you're still joining. I am delighted to be joined by three of my dear friends and colleagues, Jason, Janey and Sandra, to spend half an hour really diving into supervision, what it is, what are the benefits of it. So just before we do dive in, just to say, so Jason, Janey and Sandra, I'm sure many of you know, all work as executive coaches, and they also all have their own supervision practice as well, supporting coaches who are both experienced coaches and perhaps new to coaching as well. So just before we start off, I'm just going to come to each of you just to see, what would you like to say at the start of the time together? So Jason, welcome to you first.
Thanks, Liz. Yeah, just a quick welcome to everyone. I'm really looking forward to the time that we're going to be spending together. I am passionate about coaching and equally about supervision as well. So certainly got lots to share.
Super. Thank you, Jason. Janey, coming to you.
I could just say ditto, really, I think. Yeah, really glad to be here. Looking forward to the conversation that we'll have. Never know quite where it's going to go. So looking forward to it. And yeah, glad to be here.
Thank you, Janey. And Sandra.
Ditto to the ditto. Yes, just really pleased to be here and to share, experiences of supervision and being a supervisor.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah,
welcome
lovely.
all.
Yeah, thank you. So and just to say, so we've got a few questions that we're going to explore, but as I said, if you do have questions as we go along, put them in the chat panel. If we can bring some of those in, we will. So let's just start with a question around what it is. I'm sure many of you who are on the call with us will have had some supervision. Certainly if you've been trained with us at Catalyst 1.4, you will have been in supervision as part of your training. But I'm going to come to you first, Sandra, with just the question. So if people haven't experienced it, what is supervision?
Thank you, Liz. For me, I'm thinking straight back to coaching, yes, and all the great work that we do with our coachees, and yet it can be an intensive space as a coach, it can be a lonely space, and it can be a tiring or exhaustive space at times. So I view supervision as an opportunity to check in with myself, both what I'm doing as a coach as well as how I'm being as a coach, and whilst I'm coaching, what I'm experiencing. So with that in mind, supervision for me has the intent of providing an opportunity for us as coaches to really check in within a wrapper of safety, non-judgment and confidentiality. Yeah, so those are the three prongs. So in terms of the coverage, the purpose, I think that's three-pronged. And I know, Liz, we use at Catalyst a metaphor of the three pillars with the buttress of supervision across the top. Personally, I like the thought of a metaphor as a trident, where the stem is supervision, and then there are these three prongs. And those three prongs are, if you like, formative. So it's about, as a coach, what's my learning? Am I doing it right? So it's about knowledge and skills. Then there's a prong or a pillar, which is restorative. Liz, I love your phrase of dusting off. because as coaches, we can carry and take with us a lot. And therefore it's an opportunity to make sure that we're not carrying anything, that we can let it go. And lastly, normative, in the sense that as a coach, you can think, oh, I've got this challenge, and it may be an ethical dilemma. Am I the only one? So there's a normalizing aspect to supervision, and also a process which has, in a sense, a quality assurance intent, because it's about maintaining the professional standards of coaching, and therefore the contribution to the wider profession, notwithstanding that we all have, as coaches, either have or we're developing our own style. Lastly, before I finish, I'd like to say, just reinforcing, it's a safe space. So it really is also, as well as bringing challenges and learning from that, it's about celebration. What's going well, and how can I, as a coach, learn from that? Yes, so that's in a snippet what I'd propose.
Lovely, thank you, Sandra. And as you say, those 3 pillars, I find those very useful as a way of just helping my supervisees understand the intention, and also helping them think about what are they bringing to a particular session. So yes, so thank you. Janey, what would you add to that?
I think it's a real, I think I agree with everything Sandra said, obviously. And I think there's something about the safety of the space, somewhere you can explore, take time, take a breath, actually. Take a breath, stop, think about what you've been doing as a supervisor, as a coach, what have you been doing with your coachees? And it's a space for you to really experiment, learn, grow, develop. I think it's just so important. It's that time for you as a coach, because I think as coaches, especially in the beginning, that we can give a lot. And actually, when we're learning to do that, it's, the number of times I hear new coaches say, oh my goodness, I can't, 2 sessions in a day, I'm so tired afterwards. And it's like, and I'm saying, really encourage you to go to supervision then, really encourage you. I always like Damien's metaphor when he talks about, it's like having Velcro on the bottom of your shoes when you're a coach. So as you go through each session, a bit more sticks to your shoes each time. And if you don't do supervision, where are you going to let go of that? Where are you going to clean them off and sort of let go of that heaviness that can happen, I think. So it's having that space to really experiment, reflect, and learn and grow.
Yeah. Yeah, and Jason, I'm going to come to you in a second. I think the other thing, actually, Sandra, when you're talking about the pillars, is that normative pillar is also the ethical dilemma. So it is a place to come and bring questions or situations that feel, we sometimes say, a bit sticky, and really unpack them. Jason, what else would you add to what supervision is?
Well, I think that's been very, very thorough. For me, supervision is something to look forward to. So both as a participant joining supervision, but also as a facilitator of a supervision group. And I do generally look forward to it. One, because of all of the things that have already been covered. But essentially, it's a bit like how we contract. You can work with your group to make that as open and as safe an environment for you to get the very best out of yourself, but also others as well. It's a little bit of a playful thing, but I see supervision as a bit like taking your car in for an MOT. So as coaches, it's really, really important that we regularly apply those brakes and just look at ourselves from different angles and just make sure that we are good to go. I think you will find yourself being very, very surprised what might be brought to the table and some of the things that you might be exploring. And that also leads to a really good opportunity to sharing some of your own insights and some of your own rewards around what works. I could go on.
Well, that's handy, Jason, because I'm going to stay with you for the next question.
Yeah.
So, which really does build on what we've all talked about, which is what some of the benefits are. And I suppose you can answer that both as a professional coach who's in supervision and as a supervisor. So what would you say some of the benefits are?
So yeah, I will wrap that up into one in terms of as a supervisor and as an individual. I do see it as it's a richer and broader opportunity for for all of us to work in an active, listening and supportive group. There is something around the act of kindness, which I think is really, really important. There's plenty of opportunities to express that. And I think what you will find with some of your groups is that you can create quite an intimate space whereby some very delicate issues might be discussed and talked about. I think that really does identify some of the strengths of supervision as well. I do think it's an opportunity as well to apply those breaks and take an opportunity to breathe, and also use that as the right sort of environment to recharge as well, if only for a moment as well. We talked about professional standards, and yeah, that's really, really important. Supervision is absolutely essential to ensure that we're delivering a really good, robust coaching experience to our clients. What I also like as well is it's an opportunity to connect with people, with new faces, old faces, and that could go on, and that could lead to developing your own community of coaches as well. And I think finally, it's also a place where you can ask and express anything. So that saying of there's no such thing as a silly question, I think is really, really important.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lovely summary, Jason. I'm sitting here smiling because as you're talking about it, I'm thinking about my supervision group, and there is something about it. It feels like I can absolutely say anything. I can share anything. They've absolutely got my back, which doesn't mean they're necessarily going to let me off the hook. There's both kindness and challenge, but it comes from a place of, we've got you here. I mean, Monica, those of you who know Monica well will know that Monica often uses the phrase a posse, and my supervisory group are very much in my posse. It's like I really know that they're there to support and challenge. Yeah, it's lovely. Janey, I know we sometimes get the question about group supervision, individual supervision. What are some of the benefits of each? So what would you say in relation to that?
I think there's benefits to both. I think the individual supervision, it's really about, that's really your space. So you really are, it's very collaborative between you and your supervisor. So there's that space for you to explore and go a bit deeper, I think. And you can be selfish in that space when it's just your one-on-one session, because it's all about you, and it's fine to be all about you. As opposed to a group session, it depends on the size of the group. There's a sense of that you're learning from other people. So the benefits there are you're getting lots of different perspectives. It really does normalize it. So even if you're not bringing an issue to the table, if you're in a group session, when you're still learning from other people things that they're bringing. So even things that you weren't even sure you had a question about, someone will bring something and you'll have an insight around that as well. So I think for me, that's the big difference, and the benefits for both. The individuality, if it's one-on-one, because it really is that space for you to explore and learn and grow. And it really deepens the relationship there as well. So the trust really grows because it's that one-on-one. And you're also able to sort of draw on the, if I think about my supervisor, it's my opportunity to sort of really go, right, tell me, what would you do? And tell me a bit more about this, and really learn from them and soak up their wisdom. And you still do that when you're in a group, but you've got the perspective of the other people there. And I think there's something for me about the other group, as you say, they've got your back. It really does. I've been with my supervision group for a while as well, and they are just a lovely bunch of people, and they really support, and we hold that space for each other. So there's fun. There's sometimes, it's fun. It can be really challenging. It's all things, and it's a safe space, so you can be completely open and honest, which I really appreciate. And admit sometimes, I'm not sure, did I do that right? Was that right? Could I have done it differently? And actually to be told what your strengths are. Because I think sometimes if we're not as self-compassionate, to be told your strengths by who's around you and say, what are you talking about? This and this and this. And you go, oh yeah. Because there's that sense of trust that grows because you know each other, which I think is really powerful. So benefits to both. Yes.
Yeah, and Sandra, again, I'll come to you in a second. I mean, I don't know about the rest of you, but over the course of my coaching career, I think I started off with group supervision when I first started, because I really welcomed, I think, Jason, you said about that community.
Yeah.
And then I reached a point where I had a real niggle. It was like this little voice that kept appearing, that kept asking a question of me. And I thought, I need to go to some one-to-one supervision, because I need to bottom out what this niggle is all about. And then now I do both, group supervision, and I have one-to-one supervision. So I think we can also go on our own journey with it at different times. Sandra, what else would you say about the benefits of supervision?
A lot has been said, and I totally echo all of that. And I think it's about, from my standpoint, is that it is okay to do both, because there are going to be times when you do need to get, because something is, and my phrase, sticky icky, I add icky on the end of sticky, want to get underneath that, to unravel that, unpick that a lot more. I think from group supervision, yes, in one-to-one, of course, you're being held by your supervisor. I think in group supervision, it can come as a bit of a surprise to people new to supervision, how that container of being held by everybody, how beneficial that is. And also, as Janey has said, helping you to actually identify or be more alert to your blind spots, what you are doing well as that collaborative sharing and learning. So that sense of community was the word you used, and connecting, I think, gives a space for you then to gain confidence to actually experiment and explore that hitherto perhaps you wouldn't have had. I also think that as we go through our journeys as coaches, what we bring to supervision, there's kind of a shift in that as we journey as supervisees. And initially that's perhaps around tools and techniques and models. Am I doing it right? That initial skills aspect, and then moving on to its aspects about the coachee. And supervision, of course, is about the coachee, but it's through the coach. And then lastly, as we mature, how am I being as a coach? So it's that shift from doing to being as well.
Yeah. And actually make a really good point, Sandra, about, as a supervisor, I'm really conscious that I am working with the client through the coach. So there is a real sort of lens of, although I'm, of course, I'm working with the coach who's in front of me, but there is a lens towards the client. And Jason, it comes back to what you're saying about professional practice, so we do have that sort of lens as a supervisor when we're working with someone. I mean, the other thing I'm smiling at, so Janey and I are in the same supervision group. It's a lot of fun, isn't it, Janey? I'm smiling because it is a real place of experimentation. So we can try things out. We can try different ways of working with each other. And I know as a supervisor, I will contract with my groups and one-to-ones to say, this is a place that we can both experiment and try things. So there's so much that's going on when we're working together. Sandra, I'm going to stay with you. Just if someone hasn't had supervision, or they might be wondering what could they expect, what would you say?
Well, we've touched on already the opportunity for you as a coach to really use it as another means, an additional means to reinforce your practice. What you're doing, how you're being, and also in terms of this energy. I think we've all touched on it already about coaching can be quite intensive. So it's the opportunity to refresh, recharge, and restore. Then there's something about, given the normative, if you like, quality assurance aspect of supervision, ensuring that we're all working with our own style, but yet to a professional standard, that we may find our supervisor's style may become a little bit more direct on occasion to support our learning and our practice. And I think it's done with positive intent and always with respect, but it's about maintaining the professional codes, the professional standards. And lastly, and it's already been touched on, I think, in terms of the developmental aspect, that you do have access to your supervisor's experience and their knowledge, particularly when it comes to ethical dilemmas. The way that I work is that I contract up front for that, and I may spot contract in the moment. But if you are new to supervision and that's what you're seeking, whether it be one-to-one or group, ask for it in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I will sometimes say to my supervisor, I would like to know if I'm missing something. I've done some reflection, I've really thought it through, but actually, and of course, I've got two, he and she would get me to do some thinking first, but it's really useful that I know that I got access to that, as well. So I think you're right, that's a really important part of it. Janey, what would you add to that, just in terms of what to expect?
I think just building on that point that you've just said there, sort of that was the shift, I think, for me when I was training to be a supervisor, was that shift from being, very non-directive as a coach to suddenly being able to flex that style, and it almost being expected much more as a supervisor that you were going to be much more directive and give much more of yourself than you might do as a coach. So that shift, I think, I found it challenging to begin with, I'll be honest. That was the sort of the biggest thing about moving into supervision, that was the shift. So I think there's something about realizing that you can ask the questions, you can, it's okay. We would say as coaches, when we're training people to become coaches, someone says to you, what do you think I should do? We'd be like, very interesting. And I'm just wondering, before I share that with you, what would you do? And we'd still do supervision, but actually we'd be much more happy to share and go to that directive end. And I think as well, in terms of, for me, I think going to supervision, sometimes you go along thinking that you're going with something in mind, and then you start talking and it just can take you in a different route. So there's something about in the moment, whatever's emerging is the most important. So trust yourself in that process, that something else might come out that you hadn't really thought about or appreciated, but through that exploration, something else might emerge. So do your preparation for what you want to get from it. This is what I'm bringing to it today. This is how what I want to think about, and be aware that might shift in the moment. I think that's important to point that out as well.
Yeah, thank you. Jason, what else would you add?
Wow, what else could I add to that? There are so many things that I've heard. I really like the term of holding up the mirror, and also the point that Janey was making just now. For me, that's about, you don't know what you don't know. So you enter into the unexpected and expect to be rewarded from that. I do find supervision really, really exciting, as I said before. It's the space that you're working in that really excites me. I always see it as, selfishly, my oasis. That's really where I can just put a hell of a lot on the table. And if I don't have that much to put on the table, then I know that I can contribute through my listening skills, my feedback skills as well. So I definitely see that space as being a peaceful space. It doesn't have to be dominated by lots of talking, because there's the power of silence as well, isn't there? Which enables us to do that reflecting. And I think Janey talked about reflective practice as well. So you're really pushing against trying to break down some of the key things that you're doing and identify, which we don't often hear, some of the things that you really ought to be celebrating as well, and giving yourself a pat on the back for your work. So that they would be the main things that I would want to share.
Yeah, and again, I think what I would add is, and I'm sure as for all of you, so just as I'm often keeping the client always in mind, my intention also as a supervisor that my supervisees leave feeling more resourced, whatever that means for them. So there is a sense, as you said, of, I love the oasis metaphor, but that sense of it's an oasis so that someone leaves feeling more resourced. I think the other point, again, I certainly get asked, I'm sure you do, that sometimes in group supervision, people who come and then apologize for not having a topic. And of course we say, there is no apology needed, because you are here as part of the group. And as part of the group, you are contributing to the space that is holding others, and your knowledge and wisdom and experience and your presence is part of that experience. So there is something about helping people realize that you are a fundamental part of the group. The topic isn't the bit that makes the difference, if you like. Of course you need to do your own preparation, but I would invite people not to feel the need to apologize if they don't have a topic each time. So we've got a few minutes left, as we knew we would, because we knew the time would whiz past. So I would just, if you could give one piece of advice to someone about supervision, whether it's whether they're new to it or not new to it, what would be your little gem for them? Who shall I come to first? Jason, I'm going to come to you first.
Okay, all right. I'm going to cheat. I have to give more than one. Sorry. I would say come prepared and focused, and be open to being giving and receiving. Give your whole self to your fellow participants that are sat around the table as well. And the point that I made earlier, that act of kindness to receiving and giving is really, really important. I think it's an incredible human act and human motion. And I'd really, really try to encourage that as well.
Lovely. Thank you, Jason. Janey, coming to you next.
My advice, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. There's the power of it. Just do it, actually, because it really, it's that really restorative space, and it's so powerful. And it just, sometimes I think being a coach can be a lonely place at times, and actually, especially if you're working by yourself, if you're not part of an organization or something, it can be a lonely place and coach supervision just gives you that space to sort of, okay, so I'm doing okay with this, and this is all right, and it normalizes it. So I would say do it would be my big.
Thank you. Sandra, coming to you.
Yes, as you know, I haven't got just the one. So again, I would echo, do it. Yes, do it. I would what advice would I give? Well, yeah, arrive open-hearted, open-minded, as you are with your peers in the group, but for yourself as well. And I find for a lot of supervisees that the art of self-compassion is a learning journey in itself. And I believe supervision provides you with that opportunity, and also the opportunity to coming with an appreciative lens about yourself, as well as what you're presenting. And as you say, Liz, whilst you may not be presenting a topic, there is always learning, and you are always contributing.
Absolutely. I haven't got anything to add to that other than enjoy it. It's a wonderful, wonderful space. So we come to the end. So just to say a thank you to the three of you, to Jason, to Janey and Sandra. As always, lovely to spend the time with you, and thank you for sharing your knowledge, your wisdom and your experiences. Thank you to everyone who's joined us. It's been lovely to have you with us on this beautiful sunny day. I hope it is sunny where you are. Just to say, the next webinar, I need to check my notes for this because I can't remember it in my head. 31st of March is the next webinar. It's all about team coaching with Dr. Brodie. So we hope that you can come and join us for that. And also our CPD day this year, which is all around the theme of being human, is on the 4th of July. So if you haven't yet booked a space for that, do come and join us for that. So just remains to say again, thank you, everybody. So Sandra, Janey and Jason, enjoy the rest of your day.
You too,
well,
Liz.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.